Have you ever wondered why Cliff Richard disappeared from the spotlight? Today, we're going to reveal what really happened and the secrets behind their estrangement. Get ready to hear the full story of the British icon who conquered generations. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications bell so as not to miss any updates. Cliff Richard was born Harry Roger Webb on October 14, 1940, in Lucknow, British India. Childhood was marked by the colonial environment and the Second World War, which left the world in constant tension. From an early age, Harry experienced a life surrounded by cultural differences, noises of conflict, and the discipline required by the British context in India. In 1946, with India on the verge of gaining independence, his family decided to leave the country. The return trip to England was intense and traumatic. They boarded the SS Ranchi, facing 3 weeks of rough seas, endless queues, and uncertainty about the future. Arriving in England did not bring immediate relief. The country was in post-war reconstruction, with severe cold, food shortages, and a society trying to reorganize. For Harry, adaptation was a daily challenge. The school, the language, and the customs were different from everything he knew, and he needed to find his place in this new world. It was in this setting that Harry began to explore music as a refuge. Inspired by the rhythm and energy of artists like Little Richard, he realized he could turn his passion into a profession. Impresario Harry Grader X recognized his talent and encouraged him to change his name, seeking something more sonorous and memorable for the British public. Harry Webb became Cliff Richard. This new name symbolized a fusion of British authenticity with the vibrant energy of American rock and roll. Harry's metamorphosis into Cliff was not only artistic, but also personal. He needed to find confidence, discipline, and his own style, building the foundation that would make him a star. The young artist began to prepare for the stage and for a career that would soon cross borders, leaving behind the child who traveled the world in search of a new home. Cliff's journey was just beginning, and his first steps on the British music scene would show how he would become a sensation that no one could ignore. The year 1958 marked the beginning of a new era for British music. On August 29th, Cliff Richard released Move It, an authentic rock that stood out among the traditional ballads of the time. The song was revolutionary. In addition to an innovative sound, it turned Cliff into the first British teen idol. Young people from all over England identified with his style, his energy, and attitude, while musicians who would emerge in the following years, such as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, found in him a source of inspiration. The success was not long in becoming a cultural phenomenon. The so-called Cliff hysteria dominated entire cities. Crowds thronged the concerts, fans fainted, and security could barely contain the collective enthusiasm. Comparisons with the fever caused by Elvis Presley in the United States were inevitable. Each performance turned into a spectacle of emotion and chaos, consolidating the young singer as an icon of the new generation. In 1959, Cliff cemented his star status with back-to-back hits. Living Doll spent 6 weeks atop the charts and sold 770,000 copies, while Traveling Light spent 5 weeks at #1. He became the first Briton to sell more than 1 million records, paving the way for domestic artists to achieve global fame. At the same time, Cliff diversified his career, showing versatility beyond music. In the cinema, he debuted in Serious Charge 1959, addressing sensitive topics such as youth violence, and in Espresso Bongo 1960, a critical satire of the music industry. These works helped break the stereotype of the teen idol, showing that his art could go beyond pop songs and reach new creative dimensions. The success seemed endless, but the next few years would bring new challenges, transformations, and decisions that would test not only his talent, but also his ability to reinvent himself in the face of an ever-changing industry. In 1963, Cliff Richard reached a new level in his career when he starred in Summer Holiday, a film that would become a true cultural phenomenon in the United Kingdom. The Leicester Square premiere gathered around 3,000 fans, a crowd that reflected the magnitude of Cliff's impact on young audiences. The excitement on the streets and the buzz of the press showed that he was not just a singer, but a full-fledged star, capable of dominating stages and screens with the same intensity. The film's soundtrack further consolidated its success. With 14 consecutive weeks at the top of the charts, songs like The Next Time and Bachelor Boy not only pleased fans, but also became anthems of a generation. Each song carried Cliff's trademark energy and optimism, reinforcing his image as a versatile and charismatic artist. The film, which mixed adventure, romance, and comedy, won over critics and audiences, becoming the second biggest British box office hit of 1963. The impact of Summer Holiday went beyond the screens and the music charts. Cliff was voted the most popular actor in the United Kingdom, recognition that cemented his position as a central figure in British entertainment. His presence in the media, combined with the admiration of fans and critics, made him a real symbol of the decade. At the height of his film career, Cliff was already demonstrating that he knew how to balance music, acting, and public image, preparing himself for new challenges and opportunities. But even with all the fame and success, the next few years would bring significant changes in the industry and in the artist's own life, requiring him to constantly adapt and reinvent himself. Cliff's path continued to unfold, revealing that the journey of a British idol was far from predictable. In 1964, British music underwent an unprecedented transformation with the arrival of the Beatles. However, Cliff Richard showed he was still a force to be reckoned with. While the Beatles won fans with their innovative sound, Cliff had 6 top 10 singles, against 5 by the Fab Four. The press and the Beatles themselves acknowledged his influence. Paul McCartney claimed that they went to Hamburg because Cliff dominated Britain, and John Lennon declared that before Cliff and Move It, nothing was worth listening to in England. This public respect reflected Cliff's importance as a pioneer of British rock. In 1965, its consecration extended beyond the borders. New Musical Express magazine voted Cliff the best male singer in the world, beating heavy competitors including Elvis Presley, Lennon, and McCartney. This international recognition cemented his position as one of the most important artists of the decade, showing that his career did not depend on passing fads, but on consistent talent and dedication. While Beatlemania dominated the stage and radio, Cliff adopted a clever strategy. He didn't imitate the Beatles. He maintained his own identity, balancing pop, ballads, and family cinema, ensuring that his audience remained loyal. This decision required courage, as many artists of the time sought to copy trends in order to survive, but Cliff relied on his style and bond with his fans. The 1960s proved that Cliff Richard was not just an early phenomenon. He was a resilient artist, able to adapt without losing his essence. Between touring, recording, and films, he prepared himself for new challenges, while music and culture continued to change rapidly. The period showed that fame and success require more than talent. They require vision, strategy, and courage to stay relevant, even in times of musical revolution. In June 1966, Cliff Richard made a decision that would forever change his life and career. During an event at Earl's Court, alongside evangelist Billy Graham, he made a public statement of faith, surprising fans and industry alike. In the swinging 60s, a rock star talking about God was unusual, almost unthinkable. The reaction was immediate. Journalists questioned his image, record labels worried about sales, and some fans felt betrayed. The impact was not limited to the public. Internally, Cliff faced an existential crisis. He considered abandoning his musical career, questioning whether he could reconcile fame and faith. There were doubts about following the pop industry or even changing trajectory completely, perhaps entering teaching or another less exposed path. This period of uncertainty required deep reflection, as he sought meaning beyond applause and record sales. Even in the face of pressure, Cliff found an innovative path. He became the first major British pop star to publicly live out his faith, showing that it was possible to remain at the top of the charts without compromising religious convictions. Songs continued to hit the charts, movies still attracted audiences, and the teen idol from before morphed into a confident, authentic performer. This reinvention brought unexpected benefits. The pressure to play a role decreased, and he began to feel free to express his ideas and emotions. Cliff's music and public image gained depth and sincerity, showing that fame and spirituality could coexist, even in an era marked by consumerism and youthful rebellion. By the end of this phase, Cliff was not only preserving his career, but also building a solid personal identity, preparing himself for new artistic and professional challenges that would still lead him to exceed expectations and face decisive moments in the musical and cultural scene. The 1970s began challenging for Cliff Richard. In 1975, he lived his first year without any success in the British charts, generating speculation about the possible end of his career. Many questioned whether the idol that had conquered generations would be able to reinvent itself in the face of new trends and more aggressive sounds that dominated the music scene. The answer came in 1976 with the release of Devil Woman. The song featured a heavier, darker sound, different from the pop and ballads that had marked their early years. The public accepted it immediately. The song reached number 9 in the United Kingdom and number 6 in the United States, selling 2 million copies. Celebrities such as Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, and Elton John have shown support, reinforcing the respect of their peers and validating their ability to adapt. In the 1980s, Cliff again consolidated his prominent position. In 1987, he released Always Guaranteed, an album inspired by Michael Jackson's worldwide success with Thriller. The record went platinum, selling 1.3 million copies, and placed 4 singles in the British Top 40, showing that Cliff still knew how to connect his talent with popular taste. The following year, Mistletoe and Wine became a landmark. The single spent 4 weeks at number 1, selling 750,000 copies in 6 weeks and becoming the biggest hit of the year in the UK. Decades later, in 2024, he still earns around £100,000 annually, proof of the lasting impact of his music. This period showed that Cliff Richard not only resisted the changes of the industry, but knew how to be reborn and reinvent himself. His trajectory in the 1970s and 1980s reinforced a clear lesson. Talent, discipline, and adaptability can sustain a career for decades, even in the face of crises and new musical challenges. In May 1989, Cliff Richard achieved a historic feat. He released his 100th single, becoming the first British artist to reach this mark. The Best of Me was chosen by 2,000 fans during an event at the London Palladium, showing the strength of the connection between the idol and his audience. The song reached number 2 in the UK and received silver certification, reinforcing Cliff's relevance after 3 decades of career. The following month, he performed an epic concert at Wembley Stadium called The Event, which became a memorable spectacle. The presentation had 2 parts. The first focused on nostalgia, brought guest appearances as Vernon Girls and Dallas Boys, celebrating the 50s. The second highlighted his contemporary hits, showing that Cliff remained up to date and connected with the public. The performance was professionally recorded, spawning a live album and a TV special, further extending his legacy. Recognition did not stop there. In 1989, Cliff received the Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to Music, which recognized his outstanding career. Until then, he was the only British singer with a number 1 in 5 consecutive decades, accumulating 65 top 10 hits and 14 number 1s. This achievement reaffirmed his position as an icon of British music, capable of crossing generations. On June 30, 1990, Cliff took part in a gigantic benefit concert at Knebworth Park, sharing the stage with legends such as Paul McCartney, Elton John, Pink Floyd, and Eric Clapton. Despite the torrential rain, his performance maintained energy and enthusiasm, showing unparalleled dedication and professionalism. These years proved that Cliff Richard not only accumulated successes, but also consolidated historical milestones, building a solid career that would be remembered and celebrated by future generations. The legacy was alive and ready for new chapters. In December 1990, Cliff Richard released Savior's Day, a Christmas song written by Chris Eaton while driving his Rolls-Royce. The single quickly won over audiences and knocked Ice Ice Baby off the top of the British charts. The video, shot in September, simulated snow and harsh winter, bringing a perfect Christmas atmosphere even in the off-season. The success confirmed that Cliff was still able to surprise and innovate decades after his first hit. At the same time, his career was consolidated with successful retrospectives. The compilation Private Collection, 1979 to 1988, became multi-platinum, selling 1.2 million copies, becoming the biggest album of the career until then. Included classics like We Don't Talk Anymore, which amassed more than 5 million copies sold worldwide, reinforcing Cliff's global reach and his lasting impact on pop music. The end of the decade brought one of the most notable episodes, the Battle for the Millennium Prayer, 1999. Radio stations initially boycotted the song, BBC Radio 2 refused to put on the playlist, and Chris Evans of Virgin Radio stated that Cliff was too old for current success. Even in the face of age discrimination and lack of support from record labels, fans mobilized, holding protests in front of the BBC. The result was epic. Millennium Prayer reached #1 for 3 weeks, 40 years after Cliff's first #1, showing its continued relevance. Internationally, the song reached #2 in Australia and New Zealand and the top 20 in various regions of Europe. In addition to commercial success, the song's proceeds benefited the Children's Promise charity, reinforcing Cliff's social commitment. This decade proved that even in the face of obstacles and prejudice, Cliff Richard continued to triumph, balancing talent, persistence, and the support of loyal fans. His career showed that reinvention and dedication can overcome any challenge. In 1971, during a taping of the show It's Cliff Richard, Cliff met Olivia Newton-John. The chemistry between the two was instantaneous. Olivia was only 22 years old, and Cliff was deeply charmed, keeping his feelings a secret. Despite the attraction, fate presented complex obstacles, making romance impossible. Olivia was engaged to Bruce Welch, Cliff's bandmate, and the relationship between Bruce and Olivia was intense and turbulent between 1968 and 1973. Bruce, married, had a public affair, and the breakup brought depression and tension to everyone involved. Speculation about Olivia's possible interest in Cliff persisted, but the bond between them remained mostly artistic. Despite the love complications, the collaboration between Cliff and Olivia has spanned more than 40 years. Together, they recorded classics such as Suddenly 1980, the soundtrack to the film Xanadu, and reinterpretations of iconic songs such as When I'm 64, maintaining a solid and respectful friendship. The last duet took place in October 2015, during Cliff's 75th birthday celebration, marking another chapter of their enduring partnership. The bond between them remained until Olivia's last days. Just 3 weeks before his death, on August 8, 2022, they talked by phone. Olivia, even secretly facing 30 years of fighting cancer, showed optimism and serenity. For Cliff, the term death was painful. He preferred to say that she stopped living. In honor of her friend and partner, Cliff included tributes on the album Cliff with Strings, My Kind of Life 2023, celebrating not only Olivia's talent, but also the deep and lasting connection that has united them for decades. This story showed that some relationships transcend romance, remaining eternal in music and in the memory of those who live them. On August 14, 2014, Cliff Richard was watching television in Portugal when he saw his own home being broken into. The episode, the result of a secret deal between the BBC and South Yorkshire Police, was branded the famous money shot by the broadcaster. The broadcast went global, reaching the UK, Australia, and other countries, and showed Cliff, then aged 77, collapsing in the kitchen, shocked and vulnerable. The origin of the raid was a false accusation of abuse made by a 40-year-old man over an alleged incident at a Billy Graham rally in 1985. In reality, the event was attended by 200,000 people over 5 nights at Bramall Lane Stadium, and several contradictions arose. The room alleged by the accuser did not exist, and the sports equipment was in another location. The police investigation showed negligence. Cliff's guards were not even interviewed. The consequences were devastating. A 22-month investigation cost £800,000 without generating formal charges. Cliff suffered severe depression, insomnia, physical weakness, and shingles. Her home was felt to be contaminated, and her career stalled, with albums, books, and promotions canceled. In addition, the accuser attempted blackmail, being subsequently arrested, but still treated as a credible victim. The denouement came in an epic court battle. Cliff received £400,000 from the police and additional sums from the BBC, which spent almost £2 million during coverage. The broadcaster tried to register its report as Report of the Year, but the court acknowledged that the coverage was sensationalist. Extra damages of £20,000 were awarded due to arrogance. In July 2018, the historic victory redefined the protection of privacy in police investigations in the British media. Despite the triumph, the trauma remained. Cliff never recovered the 2 lost years, and the shadow of the episode permanently marked his reputation. even being recognized as impeccable before the media attack. And that was the real story of why Cliff Richard disappeared from the spotlight. A trajectory full of success, challenges, and overcoming that few know. If you liked it, leave your comment telling us what surprised you the most, and do not forget to activate the notifications bell to receive the next videos.